Hi brothers and sisters, Naomi back for another video. I thought today's video we'd take a look at possibly 3 chapters, and they're the 3 chapters that make up the book of Habakkuk. Now I don't know that we're going to get through the entire 3 chapters. We're going to try for at least the first 2, and if we don't get through the 3rd one, I might post another little video to finish up, and I might not. We'll see how important it is. So let's go to Habakkuk 1, because this absolutely goes along with the theology that I've been teaching about the daughters of Zion and how they factor into the covenant, and how that it is a covenant that is spoken of in the scriptures. It's hid very cleverly by those men of Baal, by those men of Belial, and of course it was by intent, by design. So I was amazed. I was reading through these 3 chapters this morning, and it was amazing to me how I could see the entire theology weaved so nicely through these 3 chapters. So we're going to just read through them, and we're going to extrapolate what information we can out of them. And hopefully, if you have been watching my videos, you're probably and you have come to understand anything that I've been saying, then hopefully you'll be able to see it in these 3 chapters for yourself, especially the first 2. It's just amazing. So let's begin. It says, the burden which Habakkuk the prophet did see. Now again, we're going to look at this through the eyes of the Spirit. We're going to look at that as an overlay over the scriptures, that it is indeed the Spirit that is speaking, and that Spirit we have come to know is the daughter of Zion, okay, that was cast down. And we've spoken on videos how that was so. So let's begin. The burden which Habakkuk the prophet did see. Verse 2. O Lord, how long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear? Even cry out unto thee of violence, and thou wilt not save. So let's look at a different rendering here. There was one that I liked better. Because instead of having to play around with Old English, it come right out and tell you what that Old English means. I know a lot of people have a fit and a half when you go to another rendering, but it really does help to settle it in your mind of what that Old English is actually trying to say, and just playing around with a lot of words that it really needlessly does in our day and age. So how long, O Lord, will I call for help, and you will not hear? I cry out to you, violence. There's violence in the land, and yet you do not save. So this is the daughter speaking, the daughter Zion. She's crying out to the Lord, her spirit. And we can go into detail maybe as we go along here, who she is, what she represents, and all those things. Verse 3, why do you make me see iniquity? Why do I have to witness it, and cause me to look on wickedness? Yes, destruction and violence are before me. Strife exists and contention arises. So we're talking about the law here. What took place under the law? They began to write laws of violence that perpetuated violence, particularly in the beginning against women, against these righteous daughters. We've discussed this. Malachi 2 verifies it, as well as many other passages. When you get reading the Bible and studying it, it certainly validates that there was a very focused target on a select group, and it was women, and it was righteous women that they were targeting these laws to put them under the law and the bondage of men, violent men who wrote violent laws claiming that they were from God, so that they could get away with perpetuating violence against their sister. And that actually leads to wars in the earth, and just an overall view that violence is okay, in the earth. It has to be that way. But watch what it says in these chapters. It says, yes, destruction and violence are before me, and strife exists and contention arises. Therefore the law is ignored. Here we go with the law. And justice is never upheld. For the wicked surround the righteous, and therefore justice comes out perverted. And that's so under the Torah law. Justice is perverted under the man-made laws that they chose to write in there to govern themselves. They said, we don't need God, which is daughter Zion. She's a representation of God. She's the Spirit of God in this earth given to man, teaching the laws of heaven, and he rejected a covenant with her. All right? Now, look among the nations. Observe Be astonished. Wonder. Because I am doing something in your days, and you would not believe it if you were told it. And so this is what's taking place right now. All right, it's all getting ready to play out, I believe, right now. I don't like this rendering so much, so let's look at a different one. Behold ye among the nations. Look at the nations and observe. Be utterly astounded. For something is taking place in your days that you will not believe when you hear about it. All right, so this thing that's taking place, this great marvel, this great wonder, is spoken of in Zechariah chapter 3. And it says these are men to be wondered at. No, it is these women to be wondered at. These daughters of Zion that are rising up in the earth as the manifested spirit in the earth. All right? That is what they are beginning to do. But it says if I tell you of it, you're not going to believe it. But I am going to do a wonder in your day. All right? And though I tell it to you, you're not going to believe it. Verse 6, for behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that fearsome, impetuous people who march throughout the earth to seize dwelling places which are not theirs. What's going on right now in the earth? All right? Just think on that yourself. You see it with your own eyes, what's going on in the earth. And it says they are dreaded and feared. Their justice and authority originate with themselves. It comes from themselves. Their views come from themselves. They are a law to themselves, and they promote their own honor. Who's doing that? Their horses are swifter than leopards. Who's known to have some of the best horses in the world? Their horses are swifter than leopards and keener than wolves in the evening. Their horsemen come galloping. Their horsemen come from far. They fly like an eagle sweeping down to devour. So look at the analogies here, the allegories here, the comparisons being made here. Okay? For those who don't think God interprets the scriptures in an allegorical and analytical view, you have it right there in many verses throughout your scriptures, all the analogies and the allegories. These people are compared to these right here. Verse 9, all of them come for violence. Their horde of faces moves forward, and they collect captives like the sand. Who's doing that in the world? They mock at kings and rulers, are laughing matter to them, and they do. They laugh at whoever is in power. They laugh at every fortress and heap up rubble to capture it, and they have been doing this for quite some time now in the earth. We know who we're talking about here, don't we? Then they sweep through like the wind and pass on, but they will be held guilty. They whose strength is their God. So let's look at this verse here for a minute. So it says, in another rendering, it says, then they sweep past like the wind and go on. Guilty people whose own strength is their God. So let's look at this one. Then they sweep by like the wind and go on. Guilty men whose own might is their God. They have placed faith in their physical power. That's what they have placed faith in. That they're the God of this earth. Because look at me. I'm powerful enough, I'll do whatever I want, so I must be a God. So they place faith in their own strength and their own ability to bring about their own whatever they desire. But what does God say? What does God say? In Zechariah chapter 4. Let's go there. I ain't got it pulled up here. I don't dare to pull too much up here. Crash my computer. So, let's go. Alright. Zechariah. It's found in Zechariah chapter 4. And what does it say? It says this in verse... It is in verse... verse 6 of chapter 4. It says this. Then she answered and spake unto me, saying, This is the word of the Lord unto Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might, that means physical power, nor by power, that means by physical power, physical strength, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. That's how the Lord does everything, through the Spirit, not through physical power. The New Testament says this flesh adds nothing, no merit to anything that I do. She says, I use my spirit to accomplish the things that I need to accomplish. And just for a fact, if you haven't watched my video, woman represents the spirit in the physical realm. So she says, not by might, nor by power do I do these things. I do them by my spirit. So these guilty men whose own might is their God, they came to worship themselves. That's what they come to do. They think their physical power is the be-all, end-all of everything. That's God. You see, that's how small-minded they are in their thinking about who God really is. So what does it say? Are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We will not die. You, O Lord, have appointed them to judge, and you, O Rock, have established them to correct. Well, now, this one is a bit iffy for me. I haven't fully determined through a lot of research and homework if she's actually alluding to her daughters of Zion here, or if she is actually alluding to these wicked men and using them as a form of correction, all right, to teach. Because oftentimes when you can't see in the good days the things that you are to see, the correct things that your eyes should be understanding and seeing in the scriptures, the Lord will will send something that will cause you to rethink about things and to begin to see them in the correct manner that you need to. And that sometimes takes a rod. And that's the same with the child. A lot of times a child will not do what they are supposed to do or begin to move in the direction they are supposed to move until the parent takes disciplinary action with the child. That's usually how it works. And in this case, I wonder if this isn't a reference to those wicked men who God is talking about, or if God is in fact talking about the daughters of Zion. Now, the more I read in these chapters, the more I tend to think it may very well be the daughters of Zion when you put all the text together. But I may be wrong. Okay, so that's one view. That's two views, actually. So verse 13. And another thing that I wanted to bring in here. It says, are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? The Holy One here is daughter Zion, and she is eternal. She is actually hid according to Song of Songs. When you get studying the passages and you begin to understand the deeper truths and the doctrines in the scriptures, certain passages of it anyway. But what does God say here? And she says she found Israel out in the desert. All right? But what does she say here? She says, you forgot the God that begat you, that birthed you, and the God that formed you, the one who writhed in pain to bring you forward, to bring you forth. You forgot all about that God. Well, I'm pretty sure that isn't male, based on this creation and not the one that men are telling me in the Bible. Who's God? She says, you forgot about me. That's the one you turned your back on. She's the one you turned your back on. And what does she say? She says, when they did that, she says, I turned my back on them because I wanted to see them understand what would happen to them in the end. That's why she says, I did it. I'm doing it to teach them a lesson, to teach my children a lesson. But she says this in verse 39. Let's say, read this in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 39. It says, see now that I, even I, am she, not he, and there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive. That's what she says. And it's given to this Lord, which is 136, which you find in Psalm 68. She is the Lord that makes alive, and she is the Lord that takes away. She says, I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. Verse 40, she is the God that strikes through her wrath in the day of her wrath. She strikes through kings in the day of her wrath because they rejected her. Verse 40, for I lift up my hand to heaven and say, I live forever. She is the only one that can do that. The Spirit is the only one that can do that. Watch this. This further validates the Lord that sits to Christ's right hand in Psalm 110. Verse 41, if I whet my glittering sword, my word, my tongue, and mine hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to mine enemies, and I will reward them that hate me. And they hate it. The daughter Zion, we're told that, she says, my mother's sons were angry with me. She says that in Song of Songs. And she says, my own vineyards I have neglected, but I have been forced to keep his. I've been forced to take care of his. That means I fed them his words. I've not fed them my own words that was given to me by the mother to teach the vineyard, the children. But in Hosea 2, she's given the vineyard back when she learns the truth, all right? Which is taught to her by the Spirit. But again, in Song of Songs, she is hid, all right? And I've just begun to understand the full meaning of this verse. So we'll just go there for a minute before we keep reading. Okay, so it's in Song of Songs. And it is chapter 1. And it is verse... Can't never remember anything. Right here, verse 7, it says, tell me, O thou whom my soul loveth, where thou feedest, where you teach your children, your flock. She's hid when she does this, it looks like. Where thou makest thy flock to rest at noon, she's resting them. For why should, and they've got I here, but the other interpretations is you. For why should you be as one that turneth aside by the flocks of thy companions? Well, that word turneth aside means to hide yourself, to veil yourself. And the deeper you go, the more you understand that it is the Spirit that is hiding in the heart of a daughter here on earth. And she is the eternal one here mentioned in Habakkuk 1. She says, are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? All right, so this is Habakkuk speaking to her. Aren't you from everlasting? Well, she is. This promised Messiah, this promised daughter of Zion is also spoken of in Micah, all right? But you go look the words up here in Song of Songs 1, and it says she is veiled, she is hidden. But it appears that her beloved can spot her by looking into her eyes. He can tell that that's her, as well as other things. So I was going to go where again? Yeah, Micah. That's where I was heading to. So we're going to go to Micah, and I believe it's chapter 3. Nope, it's 4. Nope, it's 5. It's chapter 5. See, I'm through these chapters so much that after a while they all kind of just mesh together. So it's in Micah 5. And it's a word that you're going to have to look up if you're interested. We did videos on this. But it says, now gather thyself in troops. This is chapter 5, verse 1 and 2 we're going to read. Now gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. That's daughter of Zion. He hath laid a siege against us. Or she, the harlot. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. And she was smote. They cast her down. They didn't want her for a ruler. But what does it say in verse 2? But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall she, not he. This is a female descendant when you get looking into the words. It is a daughter that comes forth. Yet out of thee shall she come forth unto me that is to be ruler in Israel, whose going forth have been from old and from everlasting. She's always been. That's why this daughter, who is the God that you forgot about, who birthed you and who writhed in pain to bring you forth, you forgot about her, but she was able in Deuteronomy 32 to raise her hand to heaven and swear that she lived forever. And she did that. She says, I swear by myself that I live forever. And then in verse 12 here in Habakkuk 1 it says, are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? That's daughter Zion. We shall not die, O Lord. You have ordained them as a judgment, and you, O rock, have established them for reproof. All right? So we're talking about the daughter of Zion, who is the rock that you find in Deuteronomy 32 that birthed you and writhed in pain to bring you forth, that you forgot about, that you ignore, that you say, no, it's he. And then a he births and writhes in pain to do it? Not according to the creation here on earth. There's not a triple male here on earth. It's male and female, and it is the female portion that delivers. All right? Children, births them. And it says Israel will be reborn out of the dust of the earth. All right? And she is counted for the new seed. But she is from everlasting. And that takes you back to the remnant, which is all female, your daughters of Zion. So we're going to keep reading here. So we'll look at it like that, all right? So these are the daughters who have appointed. They have been ordained. They are called her strong ones, her mighty ones in many passages. And there's a lot of sons who do not want to hear this. It's it's put their teeth on edge. It makes them angry. The Bible says this. It says the fathers, what does it say? Their tongue has been put on an edge. I forget what it says. And the idea is that, and not only that, but the sons will pay for what the fathers did. And mother says, no, they won't. The sons do not have to pay for the treachery that their fathers have done. If they turn away from this lie and they turn back to the truth and turn back to me, they do not suffer for the penalty of what the father did. So she's saying, though you've been taught this wickedness by your fathers, by your forefathers, she says you don't have to pay for what they taught you. You can turn back to me and to the truth. And she says you will not suffer. You will not pay for what they did. All right? Which is part of the teaching that, their sins get handed on down. Not so, not according to God. I wonder, did I write that down? It says the father's teeth are put on edge, on a bitter. They hate the taste of the grape. That's representing your wine, which is your word, which they pollute it, is what we come to understand. Because in Isaiah 28, it says our men are drunk on their own power and their own laws, their own wine. And you find that in Isaiah 28 or 29. Stay yourselves in wanders, cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For the Lord hath poured out upon them the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes, the prophets and your rulers, the seers has she covered. Now, that's a little bit different subject matter. But it's got to be Isaiah 28. Yeah. So I read you a different passage, but it's Isaiah 28 where it says they're drunk. And the idea is they're drunk on their own power, on their own words, on their own laws. And you know what it says in Job? It says, it tastes like honey on their lips, to be able to act like they're the gods of this world, and God is he, and look at me, I'm a he, and so that makes me godlike and not you, and God wrote laws that says I'm over you, and that I gotta punish you for all your wrongdoings, you wicked women, because you're to blame for it all. And that gets embedded in a lot of young men's brains, and then they become old men, and then they teach it to their sons. But God says you will not have to suffer their punishment for their wicked teachings. But what was it? I don't think I wrote it down. But it says it has put the father's teeth on edge. The truth has made them bitter, and they want nothing to do with the truth, which is that the daughter Zion is your ruler, and the way that God rules the earth, and men didn't want it. Especially, that's your example of fallen Adam. He rejected a covenant with the righteous spirit. So on we go. It says, your eyes are too pure to look on evil, and you cannot tolerate wrongdoing. Why then do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent? Why the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? You who are of pure eyes than to see evil and cannot look at wrong. Why do you idly look at traitors and remain silent while the wicked swallows up the man more righteous than he is? Which is what's going on in the earth, all right? And we have allegories and allusions to this everywhere in the Bible, that spirit that inhabit these first daughters of Zion went to sleep. All right? She says, why should I suffer you in sorrow to see all these things when I can let you sleep? Right? So we go to sleep in the spirit, and the allegory to that is also that we went to sleep to what was right. So you're seeing deep allegories everywhere to this understanding. They went to sleep, but at the end they do awaken. And it says, God, when do you awaken to our cause? When do you begin to set everything straight and put us on the straight path? All right? And you see the rising of them in Isaiah 40. All right? Make straight the path for the Lord's return. All right? So it says, you have made people like the fish in the sea, like the sea creatures that have no ruler. And we don't. It's just wicked men making wicked laws, ruling over us. And when religion's factored in, they say it's from God. Right? That's what they say. So they take up all of them with the angle, with the hook. They drag them away with their net and gather them together in their fishing net. Therefore they rejoice and they are glad. Well, we're talking about the Chaldeans here, right? That's who we're talking about, which has a reference in today's modern world about what is going on right now. Therefore they sacrifice unto their net, and they burn incense to their fishing net, because through these things their catch is large and their food is plentiful. So they believe they're made up God that's providing it for them. That's what it's saying here. Will they therefore empty their net and continually slay nations without sparing? So they're asking, Habakkuk's asking, the Spirit is asking, how long are you going to let them get away with doing this? How long are you going to let them enter the nations and slay those who are more righteous than they are? All right? And we have the allegories today's world, right? Showing us that that's exactly what's going on. These are end-time allegories we're looking at, okay? Now Habakkuk 2 says this. This is again the daughter, Zion. She says, I will stand upon my watch, and I will set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what she will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. So let's say this. Let's get a different rendering here. It says, I will take my stand at my watch post and station myself on the tower. Who are these? Who's going to do this? They're going to be the same ones that turn the battle away from the gate. All right? You find that all through the scriptures. They're going to rise up and turn the battle back. And it's going to be the ones you least expect that's going to do it. And look out to see what she will say to me, and what I will answer concerning my complaint. And the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so that he may run, or she may run, who reads it. All right? For still the vision awaits. The Lord told me this after I had my dream in 2004, and I would not have come to understand all that I know without that vision, without that dream in 2004, and so many other things that the Spirit led me to understand that I never would have been able to. But 2 months after I had that vision in 2004, I asked the Lord, I said, when will I know what this means? When will I know what this vision and this dream means? And the Lord took me to this verse in Habakkuk 2, verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, though it takes time, though it seems like it's forever, wait for it, because it will surely come, and it will not tarry. So all this that she showed me in this dream and other dreams, she says, wait for it, because it will begin to speak. But she says, though it tarries, don't worry, it's going to come in its appointed time. So she told me that 2 months after the dream. I just had no idea how the Lord's time frame worked, because I really thought when the vision spoke, it was just going to be a week, a day. It was going to speak, and that would be that. But the Lord's timetable is much different. It took a lot longer for that vision to begin to speak to me. And it's took since 2011, probably, really in depth. I began to look 2013 to now. to really begin to understand what my dreams and visions was about, as I think is happening with others. All right. So it says, behold, as for the proud one, his soul is not right within him, but the righteous will live by her faith. Furthermore, wine betrays the haughty man. What's wine? Okay, an allegory too. Grapes equal wine, which equals blood. Our blood equals word, and spirits, it cannot be mixed. It must be pure, right? We're told that in when we speak of Joseph, when the Spirit has spoken of Joseph in the Psalms, and it says he was tried and he was tested. But it says the wine had to be pure in an unmixed wine. So the men that are drunk, I believe in Isaiah 28, and they're vomiting over the tables and everything else, these wicked men who rewrote the word. That's your mixing of your wine, all right? Of the blood, really, which represents the Spirit, right? That's what it represents. But it says it must be pure. It cannot have an admixture of intermingling of filth. It has to be a pure doctrine, a pure word, which then is the allegory to remove the sin found in the law, is to cleanse our blood. It is to cleanse our spirit. You get that allegory to that. So that's what your grapes is representing. It says, furthermore, wine betrays the haughty man. The word does, right? So that he does not stay at home. He enlarges his appetite like Sheol. Well, who do you think he's a partner to? Who's he married to? Well, we're told in Proverbs 9 that the harlot is likened to Sheol. It says her steps will take you down to the gates of Sheol. So who's this man's partner? If he enlarges his appetite like Sheol, and he is like death, never satisfied, he also gathers to himself all nations and collects to himself all people. So whose partner is he? Well, he's the harlot's partner. That's who he is. Who's drunk on his own wine, his own words, his own man-made law that puts him in charge and makes him the god of this world. That's what that all says. What does it say in Proverbs 9? It says it in verse, let's see. Where does it say it exactly? She says in 17, stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant, right? So where are the stolen waters that she stole? That this harlot stole? You want to know where they pop up? They pop up in Isaiah 22. Let's read it very quick, just for a quick reference for anybody who wants to go in and look at it. So Isaiah 22, it says this of the waters. She says, stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. The land is called pleasant, right? But he knoweth not that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell, Sheol. And here, he enlarges his appetite like Sheol, and he is like death, never satisfied. He also gathers to himself all nations and collects to himself all peoples. Right? And Isaiah 22 says this of the waters that were stolen. It says this, and in this chapter is one of the reference chapters that we use to show you what the key of David is. What does it say? It says in verse 9, ye have seen also the breaches of the city of David, that there are many, and ye gather together the waters of the lower pool. That means your reservoir, and ye have numbered the houses of Jerusalem, and the houses have ye broken down. That was the daughters of Zion's houses that they tore down. You get that reference in Jeremiah 9 or 8 or 7, one of those chapters. And ye have numbered the houses of Jerusalem, and the houses have ye broken down to fortify the wall. Ye made also a ditch, verse 11. Ye made also a ditch between the two walls for the water of the old pool. But ye have not looked unto the maker thereof, neither had respect unto her that fashioned it long ago. And there she says, stolen waters are sweet. So they stole the word, and they rewrote it, they polluted it, the wine. They had mixed it, they mingled it. You get a Greek word, 2511, katharizo, make pure, clean, removing all admixture, intermingling of filth. And you are to remove that of the law. And it's only these daughters of Zion with truth in their mouth that can do that. It's law of equity, law of fairness. You find some of them in Ezekiel 18. You'll find some of them in Isaiah 58 as well. All right. So, he enlarges his mouth just like his partner because she's his spirit. All right. He also gathers to himself nations. All right. These are men ruling over people. They are called the he-goats of the world. Your rightful rulers are she-goats in Israel, representing the heifer in your Abrahamic Sarah covenant. Your she-goats there as well. She's promised to be restored back to her rightful place. Earth is known as daughter Zion, daughter Babylon right now, because that's the harlot spirit that inhabits us. And when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as righteous daughters, we become known as daughter Zion or Israel. Once again, that's what we are known as, which is the head of all nations. And then if you take that into a bigger picture, you're looking at planets that God actually alludes to as gardens. And so there are other nations out there. Though they are all represented in the earth. So it says, shall not these take up a parable against him? We did a video on this. This factored into some of our videos. And a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. How do men make themselves rich and steal? Typically from women, because we're devalued under the law. We're not worth what they're worth. We're just grinding out babies, and that has no value in the earth. Though it is the establishment of life in the earth that is deemed as most important to mother and to father. Woe to him that increases that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. So he's took our riches. He has stolen from us, particularly the daughters of Zion, whose right it is to rule the world and to distribute the wealth of earth. All right? That's what she does under the law, and she does it with equity and fairness. All right? But what does it say in verse 7? Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee? And thou shalt be for booties unto them. But watch what the other interpretation says here. It says, will not your creditors rise up suddenly? So here's something that I've speculated that actually means. It actually does mean the daughters of Zion. Because they've been bankrolled by our riches. That's how they got to be where they were. By stealing our riches away from us. By debasing us under the law and telling us that we're not equals. That's how they have stolen our riches, and in effect has made us their creditors. That's what it looks like. So it says, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee? Yeah. And those who collect from you awaken. There's that spirit awakening in the earth, the spirit of truth. She's been asleep, so she doesn't have to bear witness to the violence that is perpetuated against her daughters that she indwelt in the very beginning. And she is asleep. She's known as the key of David. She is the key laid upon his shoulder. She's the government of God, the way that God rules. Indeed, you will become plunder for them. So everything's going to begin to turn around. Because you have looted many nations. All the remainder of the people will loot you. Because of human bloodshed and violence done to the land, to the town, and all its inhabitants. So you see what they've done to the land. They've brought on war, violence, bloodshed, and claim under the law that this is from God. And she says, I'm going to let them do it. You watch. We're going to keep reading. She says, I'm going to let them do that. Woe to him who gets evil gain for his house, to put his nest on high, to be delivered from the hand of calamity. Let's read a different rendering. Woe to him who gets evil gain for his house, to set his nest on high, to be safe from the reach of harm. They're not going to be safe. They're going to come down, because they're going to be judged by the daughters of Zion. All right, who are your rightful rulers? They were the ones given in covenant. You have devised shame for your house by cutting off many peoples, and you have forfeited your life by doing so. For the stone will cry out from the wall, and the beam from the woodwork will respond. Now, you know what I took away in allegory from this? And it takes you a long time to catch on to the allegory that you're going to find in Scripture. So it's not a real easy thing to do, but it gets to be easier. What it looks like in this verse, it says, thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul. So we're bringing a house into play, okay? But verse 11 says, for the stone shall cry out to the wall, and the beam out to the timber shall answer it. Now it almost looks like it's a house being constructed, all right? And it is. It's the daughters of Zion constructing the palace for mother, but they're finally beginning to communicate between one another. They're starting to pull together as a unit that is now going to build the house for mother to indwell, which is that 144,000, which is Mount Zion, all right? Which is another word for the New Jerusalem, all right? And mother inhabits these 144,000 daughters. That's what she does. But here, it's an allegory to that house being built, and finally they're starting to cry out to one another, all right? That's what it looks like. And they're starting to figure it out. And they're going to start to come together and pull together to rebuild the house and the straight path that the daughter is actually building or making a way in Isaiah 40. So verse 12 says, woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establisheth a city by iniquity. And that is why the stones are crying out. That's another correlation that you're going to make here. And the beams shall answer it. They're crying out because he's built a town with blood. He's built a house with blood. And he's established it on sin, iniquity, violence under the law that he wrote, that makes him a god, because he thinks it's his might that's going to do it all. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, God says. Behold, is it not of the Lord of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves for very vanity? So she says, this is where she says it. She says, I'm going to let them do it. I'm going to let them war. I'm going to let them fight. I'm going to let them battle it out until they're so weary and exhausted. It says, is it not indeed from the Lord of hosts that peoples toil for fire and nations grow weary for nothing? You see? And that takes us back to the verse that we actually find in Ecclesiastes 12. What does it say? We'll go there. It says this in Ecclesiastes 12. In verse 5, it says, and when they shall be afraid. So the battle has finally come to an end. The violence in the earth has finally come to an end. It's took this violence in the earth for them to begin to pick their heads up and to realize. And also when they shall be afraid of that which is high, that's your daughters of Zion, that's your branch, that's your rod coming back, that's come back into existence. And fear shall be in the way, and the almond tree, that's your branch, shall flourish, and the grasshopper. Your grasshopper is an allusion to a soldier, to warriors. Shall be a burden. All right? It's no longer desirable to have soldiers amongst you. All right? They are eating up wealth to have them there because they are of no value anymore to you. It says, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire, the fight, shall fail, is what I believe that means. Because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the street. The truth is finally hitting home. And it says they will learn truth, and they will murmur about it. That's in Isaiah 28. How far am I in here? Ooh, I better wrap this up. So that's in Isaiah 28. Let's look at that right quick. Right here. So Isaiah 28 says this about the doctrine. It says, I'll get there. It says, no, it's 29. It says, they also that erred in spirit shall come to understand, and they that murmured shall learn doctrine. So it's going to be pride. Your pride's going to have to take a back seat. And what does it say here? Verse 14. For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord. That's the daughters of Zion. As the waters cover the sea. They're finally going to understand who God truly is. And the law of heaven. They're finally going to understand all of these things. They're going to understand truth. We're going to have to go through some pretty trying times to do that. But when these daughters stand up and strike back, it apparently is going to be fast. But again, we're looking at God's time frame. So God's time frame is very different than ours. Yeah, did I miss? Yeah. But it says, woe to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. I don't think we'll do Habakkuk 3. And it says, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? Because thou hast spoilt many nations. All the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. So it's because of their violence that they have perpetuated under the law that they will be judged for. All right? Their unfairness, their inequality, they have built themselves up with riches, they have stolen from us. And it says they will rise up suddenly. I want it to, yeah. And this is your daughters again in view when they rise up and bite back, when they finally wake up. All right? From the false theology that they have been taught about who they are. You're not the harlot. You are the righteous spirit. But what does it say? It says, and the remnant of Jacob, they got Jacob, it's Israel. And the remnant of Israel shall be among the Gentiles in the midst of many people as a lioness. Among the beasts of the forest as a young lioness among the flocks of sheep, who, if she go through, both treadeth down and teareth in pieces, and none can deliver. We can go on and read there. That's in Micah 5 if you want to go read that. But that's what this is in view here. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? So they're finally going to wake up. They're going to finally see the truth. They're your creditors. They're the ones that you've stole their riches from them. You've built yourself up with thick clay, with riches under the laws, riches that never belong to you. You've perpetuated violence against the righteous sisters and sons. You've stole what never belonged to you. You've taken away equality and equity, and you've replaced war and violence under the law. That's what you wrote into the law, as if it come from God. And that's Old Testament, Mosaic law. God's law has not got violence in it. Man wrote it in there, and then he got drunk on his own power, is what it says in Isaiah 28. Let's read it right quick. Isaiah 28. I'm in Jeremiah. Okay, Isaiah 28 says this. I'll get there. It says, let me see. Yeah, right there. It's verse 7. Isaiah 28, verse 7 speaks of this wine. And it's the grape that has set the father's teeth on edge, on bitterness. All right? The law from God did that to them. And it speaks of how, the sons do not have to pay for what the fathers taught them if they will return back to the truth of the law of heaven. Verse 7, which is what Christ did. But they also have erred through wine and through strong drink, are out of the way. The priest and the prophet have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up of wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. For all tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that there is no clean place, or no place is clean. Whom shall he teach? Whom shall she teach knowledge? And whom shall she make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast? She has to teach them as little children. But this is the way that they fell back. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. For with stammering lips and another tongue will she speak to this people. That was the same way that the truth got pulled back. Those men of Baal, those men of Belial, those foxes, God says, catch for us the foxes that would destroy the vineyard that's in bloom. These are the foxes that dug. Fox is a burrower. They took little by little, precept by precept over time. They removed the truth, placed it, plugged it full of lies. That's your allegory to Adam walling over the lies. Actually, he walled in the lies is what they do. That's the false foundation this world is founded upon that takes your rights and your riches from you, all right? Wherein they are to govern the lands with laws of equity and fairness. No violence is perpetuated against anyone. Your husband isn't your ruler, never was. God is, plain and simple. He put that in the laws. He wrote the law in such a way that it comes across that God is he, or a he, and that man ought to be bowed down to as your God, as your Lord and Master. Mother says, I'm going to remove that name out of your mouth because he was never your Lord and your Master. And these are your daughters rising up. Habakkuk, where were we? All right. So in verse 17, I believe we were in. No, we're not in 17. We're in 15. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor, no, his sister drink, that putteth a bottle to her, it may be a him too, and maketh her drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. The law actually perpetuates this against women, and women actually fall for it. They view themselves as inferior. They view that they must submit to their husband no matter what it is. That's why a lot of women will stay in a marriage where they are abused, because they've been taught it through religious law that they're a wicked woman if they don't put up with it, since the law teaches it. And it slowly gets embedded in your brain that way, that you are inferior, that you are less. And God says, not by might nor by power do I accomplish the things that I accomplish. I accomplish it through my spirit, through my daughters. That's what she's telling you. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. See, this is the turning of the table back, right? And you see that again in allegory in Isaiah 29, might be 28. Let's just see here for a minute. Yeah, it's 29. What does it say? Let me find it here. Verse 16. Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of her that made it, she made me not? Or shall the thing formed say of her that framed it, she had no understanding? You forgot the God that birthed you. You forgot the God that formed you, that writhed in pain to bring you forth. And what does it say? Let's give a different rendering. It says, you will have your fill of shame instead of glory. You men who took women and beat them down under you and made yourself a god in the earth because of your strength and power, who powered yourself, you enabled yourself under the law, you stole from them, drink yourself and show your uncircumcision. The cup in the Lord's right hand will come around to you, and utter shame will come upon your glory. It turns around. They're the disgraced ones this time. Their nakedness is exposed this time to show that they are uncircumcised, that they are with the harlot spirit. We did a video on that, why Abraham had to be circumcised and every male in his household. It was a promise to God that he would not reject a covenant with the righteous daughter, and that he would not look for a covenant with the harlot spirit. which is exactly what he did when he brought Hagar into the household. And God says, you will circumcise yourself as a symbol of this covenant, that you will not make a covenant with the harlot. All right? And so it says, I will expose your nakedness, and the cup in the Lord's right hand will come around to you, and utter disgrace and shame will be shown that you aren't circumcised. You never desired a covenant with the righteous spirit, with the righteous woman. You always wanted one with the harlot. You always had one with her. And she says, this is going to be exposed. For the violence done to Lebanon, to my righteous daughter. That's the White Mountain. That's the mountain in the north where God established herself. All right? That's daughter Zion in the north. And what did the harlot say? I will exalt myself in the northern congregation. Again, the north is in view in Psalm 68 if you want to go look at that. And so here we've got the north in view. And for the violence done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, and the devastation of its beasts by which you terrified them, because of human bloodshed and violence done to the land, to the town and all its inhabitants. What they did to the righteous daughters of Zion that were given in covenant to teach you the law of heaven. Verse 18, what profit is the idol when its maker has carved it? Men carved male idols out. That's why you've got a king made of 4 different types of metals in Daniel 2. It was a fashioned idol by man, all right? And it is the Mount Zion, representing the daughters of Zion, the 10 northern tribes of Israel, the daughters, the remnant of Israel. You claim your heritage through your woman. You don't claim it through the man. And they smashed the 10 toes on that false idol that men fashioned for everybody to bow down to and worship as a god in the earth. Woe to him who says to a piece of wood, awake, and to a mute stone, arise. And that is your teacher? Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, and there is no breath at all inside of it. But the Lord is in her holy temple, her holy palace. That's the 144,000 daughters of Zion that she chooses to inhabit, and they are the capstone that you see in Zechariah 4, and they're yelling, grace, grace unto it. They're so happy because it's like, hey boys, you thought it was all about a he. Guess what? You're wrong. Go read it. But the Lord is in her holy temple, and let all the earth be silent before her. It's her. She comes and she establishes the truth on this earth. That's the daughters of Zion being established in the earth. They're being reborn through the Spirit. All right? And God says, I am who I am. I will become who I choose to become. You don't limit me. And you don't say he. You don't limit me by form. I'm God. I will become who I choose to become. So, I don't think we'll do chapter 3 here. But I did feel that it was important that I come on and maybe discuss them in a little bit more depth. The violence under the law. And how it has been written in there by the hand of men. It's never been perpetuated by God against women. Never. Men perpetuated it. And they are not your rulers. They never were. It was the righteous daughters on given in covenant. We're told that allegory in Job 30 or 31. And it says, this began to taste. It was honey on their tongues and on their lips. Oh, they just love to throw it in our face. How they're the rulers of everything. And that was done by the wicked men who desired a covenant with the harlot spirit. So there was our video. We're going to have to cut it off because I'm going to be cut off anyway. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have. I hope you're blessed by the Lord and what it is that you are pursuing. And I hope you all have a really nice day. And thanks for watching my video.